Okay, it is 6 o'clock. I'm going to call to order meeting of the Planning Commission, Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. It's the hybrid meeting. Call to order. Roll call by recording secretary.
Today we have Teresa, Judy, Ryan, Ted, and I believe Andy's joining us via Zoom.
She needs somebody to text her the Zoom.
Let me see if I can do it.
Can you do that? Thank you. Okay, opening statement by chair. Let me find that.
Make it long. No, just
Make it long.
text me.
Opening statement. I want to welcome everybody. It's nice to have people in the audience. Nice to have people from town. Your comments are welcome at any time during the meeting by raising your hand, being recognized by the chair, except for our work agenda item numbers, which are 7 and 8 today. They're usually 7 and 8. We may also ask for your comments before voting on a motion during the discussion, but the discussion may just be among the PC members, just so you know. Once we have heard it, it can be noted. It has been noted by Abby, and we can move on. I encourage all board members to comment and ask questions throughout the meeting. Okay, consideration of any changes, additions, or removals to the agenda?
Yeah, it was one thing I didn't notice that we went over at the public hearing was section 520.14, conversions and changes of use. And we were kind of talking about section B, South 1. And I was wondering if we could take a look at that language about if a structure is located on a subdivided lot, which conforms to the lot size, setback, parking, and other requirements applicable to the relevant district and proposed use. Just clarifying that wording. Is that something we can maybe look at today?
I want to be able to do that, but I didn't want it.
Okay.
I didn't want it. I just wanted employee housing, workforce housing, and definitions amendments. That's an oversight on my part because I didn't have anything come out at the meeting about it, so I didn't have it on my radar.
It's before, before we bring this back to the board, I think we should definitely look at that language because I still don't know really what it means.
What it means is that language was for changes of use was about people being able to convert their businesses in the commercial district to other businesses. It wasn't about.
I understand all that. But
yeah. That was definitely put in there to prevent it from being about creating housing in your garage for short-term rentals. Okay. If you had let me know and I could have warned it, and I mean in the future when there's stuff like that, I could have warned it.
So because it wasn't warned, it can't be considered to be added to the agenda?
I don't think so.
Yes, it can.
How it can?
I think so.
So under the other business?
Why else would we have?
Okay, well let's put it down and see if we can get away with it or not.
And we can talk about it anyway.
Judy knows about all things
No, I don't.
open meeting.
No. You can discuss, but you can't make a motion. Yeah,
Oh, okay,
but we can
okay,
talk about
but we can talk about it. Okay, I added it to other business, Ryan. Are there any other changes, additions, or removals to the agenda? Okay, seeing I don't see any. Approval of minutes, July meeting minutes. And August meeting minutes. Did anybody have anything with the July meeting minutes they wanted to bring up?
I can't find the link. Can't, Jared.
Jared, is there any way you can send that link to Andy? She's trying to get on the Zoom link.
Yeah, what's your email address?
Andy, A-N-D-I, capital B, Gold, G-O-L-D, @gmail.com.
Thank you very much. She's trying to get on.
Can't pay attention when you do that.
Yeah. I did have one thing in the minutes. Do we have a copy of the minutes in here? We have a lot of stuff in here. It was just the part, in Abby, where you talk about
In the back.
how we, when you're talking about short-term rentals, how we, something about the state. We wanted the state to get the income from them, but it was the opposite. We don't want the state to get the income. We want the town to get the income.
Toward the end, right?
Because here it is, we should get ahead of this so that we can get money from the state. We don't want to miss out on this, but it's not getting money from the state. It's keeping the state from getting money from short-term rentals because they've brought it up in the House and the Senate every year the last 2 years. One of these times it's going to go. That was the only correction I had.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything for the July minutes?
I did not.
No? Okay. All right, how about the August minutes? Those are the minutes I did, so it's probably a lot of stuff. I know one thing right away that Judy brought to my attention was under other business board member comments, set time limits on agenda items and table them after they expire. That wasn't a board member comment. Eric Alden made that comment, so I need to move that to the community member comments, which I will do and send to Diane. Resend to Diane. Did anybody else have anything else in the August minutes? No? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the July and the August minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We got Abby doing that. I was just thinking, I gotta try to jot that down, but I don't. But we have Abby, thank goodness. Okay, all those in favor of accepting the July minutes and the August minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Nope. Comments from citizens. Do we have any comments from our citizens? Hi, Jeannie. Hi, George. Do we have Andy now? Eric's up. Eric,
Sorry, I thought Jared was going on.
approach the mic, please.
Good evening, Eric Alden, Trailside Road. Just two things to Ryan's point about the clarification that was discussed at the last meeting. I brought that to the board's attention that I wasn't quite understanding the language there. So I just want to make note that that was discussed at the last meeting. I have some questions and comments which would make more sense to express those when you get to the short-term rental section. If I could be allowed to have some words when you get to that. If I say them now, it won't make much sense to discuss them now and then discuss them at that time. Thank you.
Okay, duly noted. Are there any other comments from citizens? Oh, I'm sorry, no one ever calls me. What's Andy? She needs the Zoom link. Did you have any luck, Eric?
AndyGold@gmail.com.
Andy B. Gold.
Andy, Jared's sending you that right now.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Okay, never taken a phone call in a meeting before.
And it's capital B, Jared. I don't know if that matters, but I think it does.
Okay, we're gonna start our work on the municipal planning grant. First up is employee housing, newly called workforce housing, and definitions amendments. I sent to the board what I thought were all the things that came up at the meeting. Obviously, I missed out on the 504 one. So the changes that we made, I was going back and forth with Martha from Regional about this, and she said, make sure you change employee housing to workforce housing all through this document. So I don't know if anybody had a chance to look it over. I've looked it over a couple times, but you know how when you're looking at a document, you can miss stuff. So I made the changes that were suggested. And I asked her the questions about, does the business have to provide transportation? And she said, absolutely not. But if they have a shuttle service, then they can have less parking. She said that's what the gist of it is. And the other thing I said, does a business have to provide lodging because of this? And she said, absolutely, it doesn't say that at all. So those are two things that I wanted to clarify with her.
What sections would they be under if we made the changes?
Okay, so
Oh, there, I
section
got it. Never mind.
section 520.15, workplace forced housing, I changed all the places where it said
I see it, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
employee housing to workforce housing.
So this section B sub 2 does not require employers
No, she said it clearly doesn't. Martha said it clearly doesn't require you to provide housing, this thing that was written.
To provide transportation.
Transportation, I mean, to provide housing or transportation. I wanted to clarify those 2 points with her. It just gives people a break if they have a bus service or a shuttle service, they don't have to have as much parking. The other change in here is we changed the minimum square footage for the single occupancy bedroom to 75 square feet, because that's what the Vermont rental ordinance says you need to provide. And each additional occupancy would be 50 more square feet with a limit of 8 occupancy per bedroom. Those are 2 things that we changed because we followed the letter to the law of the Vermont rentals regulations.
So that's right out of the state.
Yeah, that's right out of that. And I sent that to everybody and the trustees.
Sure.
Martha had sent it to me earlier and I found it again and resent it.
I couldn't see in there where it gave square footage for bedrooms.
It doesn't give square footage for bedrooms, but that's under rooming and boarding house, their minimums. That's where that's given.
So the 75, I understand, but it's the 50 more per occupant. That's where I would really want to button that up with the state.
Yeah, it's definitely in the state under rooming and boarding house minimum standards.
Okay. And
Is that different than employee housing from boarding?
No, because employee housing isn't a separate kind of house. It is inside a rooming and boarding house. Employee housing or in a private home. It occurs in different kinds of housing situations. But I took it, we took it from the minimums for rooming and boarding houses. There's
Just some suggestions, that we're looking at, the rest of the language has been under P 1 and 2, those 2 they seem to be talking a little bit about similar things, but about, something that's the same. Is there some way that the board would look at, maybe condensing those into one? Because I still think the employer who signs a written agreement regarding employees, some type of transportation is really dictating that, somebody would have to, if you're signing a document that says you're going to do something.
right. John, I'm going to let Martha speak to that.
Yeah.
Martha, can you speak to that it's not requiring people to provide transportation?
I couldn't hear the question.
Okay, so John is saying in, yeah.
You gotta come over here.
Yeah, can we get someone to the mic? Thank you.
Martha, so under section B, 1 and 2, it talks about the employer needs to sign a written agreement for providing employees occupying the houses transportation. That seems like, that's a document that somebody's going to have to sign and somebody's going to have to be responsible for. Terry's saying that is not the case, that's not requiring, you're not requiring that? I guess I'm confused on that language. What does that mean?
Terry, I don't have the document right in front of me.
I think he's talking about B in 520.15.
520.15B.
B. And
1 and 2.
I think the part that is saying that you don't have to is what it says here, which may be reduced at the discretion of the Developmental Review Board under the following conditions. So those are conditions.
It just seems like you could take, those 2 sections and put them together to bring some clarity to that, I would think. That wording seems just a little bit confusing to me. I don't know what the board thinks about that, but it just seems like you're talking about 2 things, the stop, great that you moved it to a half mile versus a quarter of a mile.
I'm going to share my screen and put that up. Workforce housing.
so I see, which may be reduced. So basically, I'm reading
Can you
section.
allow me to share my screen? Sorry.
Section 530, parking and loading requirements of the zoning regs, which may be reduced at the discretion of the DRB under the following conditions 1 and 2. So,
Is that Andy still?
I think you could combine those two into one, maybe? 1 and 2, in some form or fashion. If I had more time, I could have written something, actually, I could have suggested.
Can you allow me to share my screen up there, Rebecca? You made me the host, thank you. Okay, let me find the one.
John, so 1 is about a written agreement. So it's
Correct.
basically saying there's 2 conditions. It says 1, and at the end of 1, it says or. It's a one or the other. So
Right.
I think if you combine them, it would be the same. I don't see why it would be any different.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
this,
know if you were just missing the or it needs to be.
I don't know, I guess I interpret it a little bit differently, and it seems just a little confusing. It
No,
seems like
just,
you
I
could,
think it's because the or is,
at the end of 1.
at the end of number 1. So it's 1 is they do the written agreement, or the house is within half a mile of a stop for a public or employer-provided transportation system.
and those 2 conditions, 1 or the other, would allow the DRB to potentially reduce the parking and
Right.
loading requirements.
okay.
Right. So that's actually intended to help the employer, not hurt them.
All right, so let's move down.
We'll make that or like bold, underlined.
Yeah.
You know, and it could even be just reformatting it and have like 1 and then just 1 line says, or the housing is. It is hard to miss, easy to miss, I mean.
I would actually recommend keeping it the way it is. This is what you typically see in a legal document, the way it's done now.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know, Martha wrote this up at Regional, so I know they had their expertise on it. We changed very little of what she had written up at Regional with Allison and Jason.
Okay. Next one I'd like to take a look at again, and this is the one that seems to, keep coming back to me, is the square footage requirements that we keep talking about. Again, we talk about, fire life safety, just above that, that we look at them for, their direction on, occupancy of buildings, right? They determine occupancy of buildings. You can't go in a building or, a public building of some sort, or people who are staying without getting, fire life safety to come in and actually take a look at a building and then determine what that occupancy is. The occupancy, changing that, going above and beyond what they're dictating here is actually, I think, is becoming, extremely restrictive for, people that have that type of housing, right? I think people usually, you're always going to find somebody that doesn't, but 99% of the time, most people make the right decisions about how they use their housing properly, right? So putting these square footages in reduces the ability to put people in housing in certain instances, right? With a lack of housing that we have in this community at this point in time, I think, you need to give people that flexibility, and even the people that are renting that flexibility that may want to make that decision that they don't need that much square footage, right?
I hear you, but these are the minimum standards that we're asking people to do.
It's interesting
Minimum.
what you talk about in the Vermont housing codes, because I read the HUD codes and some of the other things, and they talk about recommendations and thoughts, and they told, in the HUD one, it's pretty specific that you should be extremely careful about how you write square footages into documents, because they can become discriminatory at certain points in time for people who are renting. Or
This language is
in their
already
buildings.
vetted by the state, so.
Well, I'm talking a HUD document too, it's a federal document. So, there's people that have looked at this for a while. It's not perfectly etched in stone. And a lot of the documents, and Judy bring up a good point with the or, it says should. It doesn't say shall, right? So the square footages should be different. And the second portion of this, once you put in square footages, who is gonna monitor the square footages in these homes or in these places, right? Who's gonna go in and say, hey, you have the right number or you have the wrong number here, right?
That would be the person giving you the permit. That would be Rose or Jared.
So who's gonna check on that, right? Who's
That
gonna
would
be
be
who's
Rose or
gonna-
Jared, yeah.
Who's gonna be the gatekeeper?
That would be Rose or Jared, because that's what the permit
okay,
is
so there's
based
not gonna
on.
be, okay. And how often would that be done? Is that gonna be done on a regular basis, or when somebody comes and, actually says, oh, I think there's too many people in that house, or,
Is
when
there
does
anybody
that
else on the
happen?
planning commission that wants to change that and not require the minimum square footage per bedroom? I mean, I shouldn't assume that we're all in agreement there, but
So the 75 minimum, but it's the 50 more per occupant. And do you have any instances where the fire marshal has allowed like a 6 occupant room? Did you have an example of the size of a room like that?
No.
That's been approved by the fire marshal?
Yeah, I mean, we have a building that we're dealing with on a different one on a conditional use permit that we're coming back to the DRB on. But, from an occupancy standpoint on that one, that particular building, that was, the fire marshal, we brought him in first thing, he looked at that, and that occupancy for those units was 42 people, right? So, that was the number, that was, fully sprinklered, fully alarmed, all the things that it needed to be.
And putting how many in each bedroom?
2 to 3.
2 to 3 in each
2 to 3, right? And the interesting thing about that is, obviously we have a housing team that oversees, our properties. So even with that, the 42, I mean, we're very realistic about looking at that and looking about living conditions, right? Like everybody should be. And I think last year we only put 32 or 36 people in that building. So we didn't maximize the 42. But I think we should be looking at occupancy based upon what the fire marshal's recommendations are, not what, a square footage is, because it just, that's the one that's really determining what, that house is, can be used for safely.
okay, well, thank you for your input on that.
Okay.
So could we potentially keep the 75?
Andy, did you want to say something? Or Martha?
Just to clarify a few things, I don't believe the 70 square feet came from the Vermont Rental Housing Code. In the International Building Code, there's some language that says a dwelling unit shall have one room that's greater than or equal to 120 square feet, and other rooms shall be at least 70 square feet. So I think that's where the 70 square feet frequently comes from in terms of the size of bedrooms. But the Vermont Rental Housing Code, primarily, what it has to do with is the number of bathrooms you have to have based on the number of people in the house. So, for example, you do have to have one bathroom for every 8 people living there. And then there are some additional requirements about the size, both for relative to whether multiple dwelling units can share a bathroom and so on. So
Yeah. Eric Alden is the one that brought that up, the 75 feet and the extra 50, and I found it under the Vermont minimum standards for rooming and boarding houses is where I found it.
So would it be viable, well, first of all, we have to comply with state law if that's applicable. But after that, would it be viable to say unless a waiver is obtained from, the fire marshal? So that would satisfy John's concern. Would it not?
It would, but, we're talking about John and Vale and doing the right thing, but I think we should have some precautions on there for other employees, just some minimum standards for, for bedrooms and extra people in bedrooms. I mean, that's how I feel about it.
that is where we came from. We are trying to sort of adjust, for what's being said today, but that is where we came from, and that was for the benefit of both the town and the employees to have some habitable minimum.
Right, it's not something I'm willing to budge on.
So,
And one other thing, in Vermont, because Vermont is a Dillon state, towns generally have to, they take their lead from the state as to what they can and cannot do. And you can't be, I don't think you could lower the standards of the state to be more permissive in this regard in terms of housing.
Makes sense to me.
One other,
I apologize, go on.
just one other thing before I forget. I think under E, you left employee housing in there instead of workforce housing.
Yeah, I did. Okay, thank you. Good catch.
Harry, do you by any chance on the web have a citation to where you found those minimum standards in housing?
Yeah, I found it by Googling those standards, and it came out in the rooming and boarding house minimum standards for the state of Vermont. Gotta put the word Vermont in there. Is there anything else in this section, or can we move on to our definitions? In the 520.15 workforce housing, are we ready to bring this back to the trustees? Or is there anything else we wanna, any board member comments? And then I'll take public comments.
so just look at definitions.
Yeah, just this section until we get to the, and then we'll do the definitions next. We good with this?
I would just like to see where it actually says 50 square feet, because I couldn't find it anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, my opinion on it is that if we don't need to have that in there, we shouldn't. If the state of Vermont's going to give whomever a permit to do housing wherever, whether it's Okemo or who it is, that's what we should be going with. And if we're trying to add more things here with the 50 square feet with limits and this and that, if the Vermont Department of Public Safety, the fire marshal comes in and says that you can do a certain thing, that's what we should have. And how do we go over that?
Yeah, we do have that about the Vermonts, but I hear what you're saying, that we don't.
But then we drop down out of that and we go right into this, and then.
Because I think we wanted some minimum standards, but
I
hear you.
understand the minimum standards, but it seems like, from the last meeting we were at, we aren't accomplishing things because we are trying to do stuff that doesn't seem to be working for everyone. And obviously we're trying to make it work for everyone, and we're trying to take care of the residents of Ludlow and trying to do all the things that we need to do. But I think we need to be able to clean up stuff like this and not really worry about that. If that's public safety, fire safety division is happy with X, we should be happy with X.
okay, so
That's my opinion.
we got a no from Ted. What do we have from Ryan?
So I would just like to have the board consider minimum 75 square feet and occupancy after, any occupancy after single occupancy is at the discretion of the fire marshal. Because you look at an eight occupants in a bedroom, that's 475 square feet. That's a very large room.
And Judy, you want to weigh in on how you feel about it?
I kind of like Ryan's recommendation, makes sense.
I agree with Ryan's recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have that amendment. So, Steve?
Just Googling the Vermont standards under Division 4 space and occupancy for a rooming and boarding house in Vermont, it says every dwelling unit shall contain a minimum habitable floor area of not less than 150 square feet for the first occupant and 100 square feet for each additional occupant, up to a limit of 3, and at least 50 square feet for each additional occupant after 4. That's section 1890, Division 4, space and occupancy of the Vermont law for a boarding house.
But that's not bedrooms, right? That's like living rooms and stuff.
Yeah, that's different.
Square footage.
Later on, look later on in that document.
That'd be one big bedroom.
Each bedroom is 70 square feet with additional 50 for each other person.
Additional,
Well, then let's go with 70, if that's what it is.
yeah, because Martha, she commented to me on that too, that we had it.
And
Two
50
different
square
places.
feet for each additional person?
50 square feet for each additional person?
Steve?
Steve?
Yes.
Oh,
Well, there it is.
There it
If
is.
the approved unit exceeds the square footage requirements, the code official may order the number of persons sleeping or living in said room or dwelling unit to be reduced. So that would, again, go back to the fire marshal rather than that.
So
And
by
Steve,
saying,
can you tell me where you got that from again, please?
So I just Googled basically the, housing minimums for boarding house in Vermont, and then it's section 1890 under division 4 for space.
so
Told you so. I'm just kidding.
either way, but the discretion of the occupancy, after one occupant at the discretion of the fire marshal, they're gonna use those same standards.
Yeah, but what if the fire marshal isn't available? Then we have one for the entire state.
That's.
No.
No, I mean, this makes the planners take a look at it. Our planners, our people that check on the permits, Jared and Rose.
Makes it easier for them.
Yeah, it definitely does. Andy, you want to weigh in here?
Yes, if it's stated, I think we should repeat what's stated. I think when we can be less vague, we should be less vague. It won't always work, but if this is the law, we should just apply the law.
So can we move on? Have we decided? 70 additional 50?
Yes. For me.
Ted, I did hear you. I'm just trying to, hear everybody's,
No,
come to a consensus.
absolutely. No,
Okay,
that's my opinion, and
all
I
right.
feel that way, so.
Do we have any urgent public comments before we move on? Yeah.
I just have one question. So, sorry, I'm really short. Can you hear me all right on the
Can
camera?
you tilt it down?
Oh, yeah, might be loud for a sec. Okay, there we go. Haley Del Judas. So I just have a quick question. In a past meeting, I believe you removed workforce housing as a permitted use. Is that correct?
Well, if it goes through, we propose that, yes.
Okay, so you stated to John that the square footage would be
We
kept
didn't
track.
remove it as a permitted use. Workforce housing is not a type of house, so it's not listed in any district as a type of house. We put rooming and boarding house into a permitted use out of conditional use. That's our proposal to the trustees. Hasn't
Okay,
gone
so
through yet.
if workforce housing were taking place in a multifamily unit that doesn't have a permit, how would the square footage be tracked?
Well, it would have to have a permit because it's workforce housing.
So it is a permitted use, workforce housing, just not conditional?
Well, it's going to be a permitted use because it's workforce housing, so whatever housing it occurs in, it's going to be a permitted use.
Okay, so any workforce housing, regardless of what type, is permitted?
Right.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Any other pressing needs before we move on to definitions? And this was going to be the quick part. John?
So how will we treat this going forward? This is, any of these new regulations, definitions, things that you're doing now will take place going forward with permits, is that correct? Not going backwards with
If
pre-existing?
the trustees agree with our proposals.
Right, so pre-existing stays as they are, going forward, these would be the new regs.
Grandfather, yeah, but actually,
They would be grandfathered.
yeah,
Is that an assumption of how, is that always a valid assumption?
Well,
I mean, I want to make sure, this is especially about safety and habitability.
That's what I'm asking.
Right? And- Yeah, that's an excellent question, John. I think that Ludlow in general, nothing to do with this, has a habit of grandfathering everything, which is creating issues. And if it's a state law, then I don't think we can grandfather it anyway.
At this point, this isn't about redoing everything though, at this point.
Right, so.
But as soon as this stuff was warned though, it went into effect, just so everybody knows. And then after they make a decision, then it can be yayed or nayed. But as soon as it's warned, so that people can't just like sneak in there with, you know, whatever they wanted to do while we're talking about it and discussing it with the trustees.
Well, I think it has to be approved before you can.
No,
you
it
can
actually becomes.
Right, it doesn't become actual until it's approved.
It's in effect until it is approved or disapproved.
No,
Yeah,
it's
it is.
not. No, it's not.
That's news to me.
No, it's not.
That's
not,
really
Terry.
advice to me.
No, yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure it is. I'll find out.
No,
That's how it's always been, as long as I've been on the
That
board.
is, that's correct.
That is correct, says Martha.
Martha was the zoning administrator, West Windsor.
Right. Okay, I'd like
So
to get
people can't, like, slide
clarification
in
on it.
there, you know, and try to
Well,
get it before
I don't
you
think
get
people are
approved.
trying to slide in there.
I know, I mean,
so-
that's why they do it that way though.
I mean, I think
Why
you
it-
should, I
why
mean, I
it's
think
done
people
that way.
wanna, I think people are trying to get a reasonable understanding of what's pre-existing and what's new, right?
Right,
And where you draw the line between the two,
right,
okay?
yeah.
Okay,
Well, we can do research and find out.
Yeah, I would-
Whether things are grandfathered or not.
Yeah, we can, but
And
this is,
know by the time
but
we
this
go
is
back
new
to the
zoning, and I know
trustees.
new zoning doesn't, you know, delete old zoning.
right,
That's not the way it works.
all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna assume we're ready to move on to definitions. First one, workforce housing. So obviously I changed the wording.
Yeah.
And what else did we change? I don't think anything else, just the wording.
Mary, can you please put up on the screen what you're looking at? We have a lot of loose documents. so-
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so it's up now.
Thank you.
Mhm. So all the change there is the wording. And I assume there's some sort of corporate loophole that if you call it workforce housing, you get some kind of break. I hope that's what this is about. That's what my old man thought it was about. Yeah, modern terminology. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to bread and breakfast. And I think we had a comment that we wanted to say may provide. No, that's under rooming and boarding house. We had that comment from a citizen, I think it was you, at the trustees meeting, right? In the back row? That you were saying that you must provide meals or something, and we
Yes.
changed that to may, so that got changed there. Nothing got changed on bed and breakfast from what we approved before. So we can move on to rooming and boarding house, and the only thing that got changed there was 1 or 2 more meals, housekeeping and or laundry service may be provided. It did say shall be provided or something like that. And the only other change we have in our definitions is inn, on George's suggestion. We went from 25 guest rooms to 15, which later on we're gonna talk about the definition of a motel, and that distinguishes it from a motel, which is currently says 25 guest rooms.
And I'm sorry, what is the purpose of limiting the inn as we are trying to have more accommodations as people come into town, so that people aren't taking away housing? A motel, first of all, requires that you have the entrances are from the outside, that's very specific about a motel. What is the concern, if it could even fit 25, but what is can someone remind me of what the issue is, why are we in 15?
I think that was a comment made by the trustees.
Oh, it was made by George Tucker Jr.
I'm sorry, what was the answer?
It was a suggestion made by George Tucker Jr., one of our selectmen,
Right.
to distinguish it from a motel. And I hear you saying that the motel is distinguished by having entrance from the outside, but
I mean, so aren't we, the point is, I understand that he suggested it, but for us as the planning commission trying to grow the town, or maintain growth and find housing for everybody, why would we limit it to 15? That's what I'm asking at this point.
George?
My concern was raised that an inn of 25 rooms is a significant size, and where an inn can be located is vastly different than motel and hotel. And the concern that that may not even be an applicable building that resides in the town of Ludlow where the regs would be. That was my concern. Also for safety as well.
How's the rest of the board members feeling about that, going from 25 to 15? That was suggested at the trustees meeting.
I think it's reasonable.
It's restrictive. But but motels, why, and then, so motels aren't on here?
We're not sending that to the trustees right now, but it will be,
Sure.
because we're gonna talk about it later.
So, but then, so 15 here, motels, we're talking 25?
Yeah,
Why? we
because
get a
distinguishes
motel.
it from a hotel.
We already have a motel in town with far more than 25 guest rooms.
Where's that?
Fox Run,
Oh, yeah.
that's a motel. So I guess I kind of echo Andy in this restrictiveness. Why are we cutting down on potential opportunity? As long as it's safe.
Concern is safety, that's gonna be complied with through construction and fire marshal and everybody else. I don't think that's relevant. I think that the lot size will end up determining, you know, the rooms, and it'll be applicable for other conversation about the size of rooms, et cetera.
Can we split the difference to 20? The Audrey Rose has 17, right?
Right by the Veterans Memorial.
Yeah. Harrison.
Way more than 25. I think it's probably close to 70.
At Fox Run?
Which motels are notoriously 100-unit motels. 30, 40, 50 unit motels, so.
Okay, I'll reverse my position. I'll go with 25.
At 25, and all the other density requirements, everything else will take care of whether or not it's safe. If someone has the ability to put a 25-room in.
Okay, well, I hear us,
If we already have
I hear most
one,
of
I
our
don't know
members
why
saying
we would say
25.
we can't.
Yeah.
So that's
I
gonna,
did not realize it was that large.
I'll put that back to 25. Geez, I wrote 15 on here. Okay. All right, are we done with definitions? So, Martha, I guess we're ready to move on to loose ends. So what's next? Definitions, clarifying lot coverage language and deciding on lot coverage for Village R, Village R2, and Village RC.
Can I share my screen?
You can share your, Becca, can she share her screen, Martha? Can you make her the host?
No, you have to make her the host.
I have to make her the host? How do I do that?
Right click on her video.
Right click on her video?
On her picture.
Will you do it? I don't know how to do it on a Mac. How do you right click on a Mac?
I think you go here. Or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do it, because I don't know Max either.
We're gonna make Martha the host so she can share her document. Oop, there we go. Change host. Thank you. All right.
Okay, so as you were just discussing, we had some definitions that we needed to finalize.
Oh yeah, that was next.
Pardon?
Nothing, that was next, Martha. I was just noticing on the agenda, that's next. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have them in the order of hotel. The only thing that we didn't discuss, we added this at the end of the last meeting, by definition, the term hotel excludes inns, motels, and other types of commercial lodging. And my comment on that was just that, in thinking about it, I'm not sure that you gain anything.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything.
Sorry, so Mark, I think that was my idea to add it, and my rationale was that if we have an issue of potential overlap. So a hotel, you could be something that you're a motel, but because of the definition of hotel, you're both. So we have to make sure you're mutually exclusive and not both. So the proposal was, if you're already a motel, then you're not a hotel. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we'll leave it that way, and motel. Last meeting, you wanted to add something about having living quarters for the owner, so I added that in here in the middle. A short-term commercial lodging facility for transients containing up to 25 units with optional independent living quarters for the owner of the property or the operator of the facility. Each unit shall have a private outside entrance and parking space and shall include at least a bedroom and a bathroom.
I like it.
Sounds good.
I disagree with the amount of units.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
I think a motel should be able to be as large as the lot requires, parking and, you have parking requirements, you have density requirements. So we already have a motel in town, it's called the Fox Run Inn, but it's a motel by definition. And it has far more than 25 rooms.
What do you think, Martha? Is there a reason why it says 25?
That was what you guys came up with, so I don't have any dog in this fight.
I'm with Ryan on this, on the number. I would.
Do you want no number, Ryan?
I don't wanna, I say, to conforming to the lot. The lot is gonna determine how many parking spots are available, how much building is available. The room size is then gonna dictate how each.
So instead of saying
So,
just conforming to the lot.
conforming to lot density requirements, I don't know how you wanna word that, but it doesn't, we should not have a number of units as a restriction.
So the only difference between a motel and a hotel is you access your room from the outside.
Nope, a hotel can have functions, weddings,
Right,
a restaurant inside,
And a motel.
lots of things inside.
you know,
So-
24/7, service.
What if we said we take out, containing up to 25 units, okay? But at the end of that definition, say, the number of units is dependent on lot density and parking requirements.
That sounds good.
Isn't that a given? Does that imply, or no?
So just,
Well, it is, but if somebody's reading this thinking they want to do
Right.
something like that, it's a lot easier than
Right.
digging through, well, what are they?
Right.
In my opinion.
Good point. It's helpful for the user.
Yeah.
It's user friendly.
Can we cite where those are in our zoning regs?
where the motels and hotels are?
Nope, so
No, where the density and parking
Density
requirements are.
regs.
Well, yeah,
Where they could just.
we're gonna talk about density today.
So at the end of the motel definition, we could say something like conforming to existing zoning regulations via point them to
Okay.
where those are.
Instead of what I said.
It's the same thing. Well, no. It's,
Well, we're in the village, so the density is gonna be the same.
sure. But I'm just saying citing within the document where they can find those density requirements.
I see what you're saying.
Oh, okay, now I get it, yeah.
Get it.
Okay, are we good with it? Motel and hotel? Okay, another thing we have is personal service. We didn't have a definition for that.
Did we need to look at transitional housing or is that okay?
No, that was part of what we already brought to the trustees.
This screen's a little messed up here, so hang on.
makes sense.
It does to me, I don't see any problem with it.
Sorry, I was having technical difficulties. Did you,
Personal service? Oh, transitional housing, yeah, we are doing that, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
could you just summarize for me what you decided on hotel and was distracted by
Ryan, can you
having
say your thing again?
difficulties?
Yep, so removing the unit restriction
She already did that.
and then conforming to existing density or parking regulations, and then cite within the zoning document where those are.
Which we're deciding on tonight.
So conform to existing density parking and what else did you say?
Density and parking requirements.
Okay. Okay. So transitional housing. I think you were getting into a lot of discussion about physical, social, psychological, and so I tried to simplify this to suggest that it just be supportive housing that does not meet the definition of a group home as defined in 24 VSA 4412, and where individuals live for a period of time while receiving supportive services.
Sounds good.
That sounds
Sounds clarified.
concise.
Okay, good. Personal service. Before it was just a list of different services, so here's an option, an action taken by a provider for the benefit of a customer in which the production and consumption occurs simultaneously and are based on the provider's efforts rather than a saleable product. Examples include barbers, hairdressers, manicurists, beauty parlors, massage therapy, and similar services.
So wouldn't that include a restaurant though?
I would think a restaurant is food service, not personal.
The saleable product of a restaurant is food.
Do we have a food service definition?
Do we need one? Restaurant?
I don't know.
I don't think we do.
Do we already have one? That's the question.
I'm sure we have a definition of restaurant.
I know.
Martha would have figured that one out, of our missing definitions.
That would have been a long time ago.
Well, I mean, I think it's getting a little in the weeds, but if production and consumption are occurring simultaneously, that would eliminate restaurants.
Yeah.
Well,
We include things like, you're cutting the person's hair and you're receiving a haircut at exactly the same time. Same with a manicurist or massagers.
You have a point, we could also just say here that it doesn't include restaurants, and to answer your question about allowing sales of related products, I would agree with it. We can say that whether we say it's a minor portion or, it's de minimis part of the business, or, I would agree with that. You're right about production and consumption technically. Say it's not a restaurant.
Okay.
What do others think?
I'm fine with that.
yeah, I'm good with personal service as written.
So am I.
Okay, moving on to lot coverage.
Okay, lot coverage, this is problematic, in your current regulations, so proposing that you change your definition to that portion, percentage of a lot, area which is covered by buildings, roof structures, sidewalks, paved parking, and loading areas, driveways, access roads, tennis courts, and other impermeable surfaces which prevent the infiltration of stormwater. Areas covered by decks, boardwalks, or permeable pavement may be counted at 50%. Lawn and garden areas are specifically excluded from this definition.
Sounds good.
In the future, doing a great job, and we appreciate it. Is it possible to have next to it, you know, I like redlining to see what the change is, so I don't know what we're changing. Is this whole thing new, or?
This is new. I think your current definition is either building coverage or coverage. I can pull up the zoning document if that would be helpful.
That would be very helpful, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, the purpose of this new definition was to eliminate the other two. So it's clear what lot coverage is when you're talking about density.
Coverage, that percentage of the lot area covered by the footprint of the building area. So you weren't including all the other impermeable surfaces. And when we get into how this word is used throughout the document, I think you'll see why it's problematic.
And can you put back up then again the proposed? Thank you very much. Very much.
So where is this? So adding sidewalks, paved parking, loading areas, driveways, access roads. Where is that not having that hurt us in other areas specifically?
Well, if you want to hold off on this while we look at those other areas, that might be helpful. Down here, I listed where it's used.
Oh, yeah,
So I
number 4.
I can jump back to the zoning regulations, we can look at these areas.
That'd be great.
Well, that would be great, and by changing this definition, we'd have to look at our coverage percentages for every district.
Right, which I also have here, look at the lot size and coverage in all the districts.
Yep, so next bullet.
I mean, especially the preservation district where you have it at 12%, which basically prevents anyone from doing anything.
Right. I thought we changed that to 50.
No, we talked about it.
We talked about where we didn't actually do it, okay.
We talked about it.
We talked about it. Okay, so we're moving on to looking at it in each district, and then circling back to it.
Get it in services in the document first. We close my list, but I list. There we go, okay. So, section 270.
$270.5. Bullet 7. She's bringing it up. I want to see it.
Oh, you have it there? Oh,
Yeah, because I'm in the Zoom.
yeah, because I can't see. We'll show you.
Alright, so 270 is plan unit developments, 270.5 is standards for review, and it's the number 7 under standards for review. Following general standards shall be met in order for the development review board to approve the application. Verse 7 The commercial industrial units acreage shall not be included in the density calculation for the residential part of the project. That I get. This density shall be calculated by assuming the footprint of the building is the maximum percent coverage allowed, or the minimum lot area, whichever is greater. I just find that very confusing. I don't know if you all understand that.
Yeah, I have no idea what that means.
I agree with you.
We got George on the DRB. George, is that confusing?
What was the language again you were trying to?
Density shall be calculated by assuming the footprint of the building is the maximum percent coverage allowed or the minimum lot area, whichever is greater.
Sounds like you're gonna do math.
Yeah, lots of math.
It's clear as mud.
Do you have a suggestion, Martha?
Well, that's where her lot coverage.
If nobody understands it, I wonder if it could just be eliminated.
That sounds good to me.
Oh, I wish Phil Carter could weigh in. Assuming the footprint of the building is the maximum percent coverage allowed. Yeah, it seems like that would already be determined when you're talking about the PUD.
If it sounds like a riddle, it shouldn't be in here.
I agree. If we can't figure it out, how's it?
There is, who understands that it can always be added back.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Phil about it.
That's the way they, or that's the math problem. That's the X plus Y equals the answer.
Do you think it's necessary, Steve?
I think that it just shows how the lot coverage is determined. It doesn't really change any of the lot coverage at all. It's just the math problem that they're using to determine the lot coverage.
Is that the only place you find it though? Is it necessary?
Like I said, I don't think it's necessary or not necessary. I think that's just how that's the math problem. So that's how the density is calculated.
Okay, so maybe we need it.
They can end up coming back to how the DRB or whoever else is calculating the area would use that math problem to figure out whether the density.
Okay, I'll ask Phil about it. We still have another day to talk about it before it goes to public hearing. What number was that? 270, oh, right here. Okay, we're gonna move on to section 410.
Let's jump to 520.2.
520.2, oh, because we're in the neighborhood?
You guys will look at all ways that it's used. So right now you have a section that was called building coverage. And this, now I'm suggesting that you change it. I think you could even just eliminate it.
And just talk about lot coverage?
Right.
That might make sense to me.
Me too. Okay, we're going with that.
What section is that?
520.2,
Point two.
520.2.
Thank you.
So you like to change it or you want to just eliminate it?
Eliminate and go with lot coverage? Is that what people are saying? Is our definition?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so that covers 520.8 then too.
520.8.
Oh no, that's the last one I'm talking about. The last bullet it covers.
Except as permitted for PUDs, no lot will be so reduced in size that the area lot with frontage setbacks coverage are smaller than here prescribed for each district. Since coverage is a maximum, rather than minimum, I recommend pulling it out and having it on its own line.
Could you restate that, please?
Yeah, it's,
So, if say you're subdividing and you're subdividing an existing lot, and you wanna put the line in a place where the frontage will meet the requirements, the lot width, the setbacks, everything will meet the requirements. So you don't want them to end up being smaller than prescribed in the district. But the coverage would be okay for it to be smaller than prescribed because coverage is a maximum. So in that case, you wouldn't want to draw your subdivision line in a way that would result in the coverage being larger than allowed in the district. If that makes sense.
yeah,
No, it still doesn't make sense to me.
it doesn't make sense. She's saying you don't want to draw your setback line in a place where you're not allowed that much coverage, that much lot coverage. You're not gonna make your setback.
No, how much lot coverage? You said that much. I don't understand. Can I just
Yeah.
grab this for a second?
If you have a house and a garage and a driveway and it adds up to 50% it covers 50% of the lot, and then you want to divide it, you want to subdivide that lot. And by subdividing it, it's then going to cover 80% of the remaining lot, of the lot that, the amount of ground that it's left with, rather than 50%. And maybe the maximum coverage is 75.
So what does this do? What
Prevents-
does this language prevents that from
Let's
happening?
say, don't create a lot you're basically, if you did that, you'd be creating a non-conforming lot.
So basically, this is saying you can't subdivide it into a non-conforming lot.
Yeah,
All right, I understand that.
That's better.
actually, I like the way you said it better, Ryan.
Which,
Yeah, because I
would
was
think-
like, what are you?
which I would think would be stopped anyway, wouldn't it? Any subdivision has to get permitted.
Yeah, I don't think you say it anywhere else in that way to not create a non-conforming lot. It's regulations.
So it does need to be said.
So could we say that
Yes.
no lot shall be subdivided to become non-conforming to its district?
That sounds good.
Yeah,
Instead of number 2?
well, that at least makes sense. So you can't subdivide a lot, you can't create a new parcel that is non-conforming to the district in which it resides.
Right, which is not what number 2 is trying to say, but unclearly. Eric?
Sorry, maybe I'm not following this. Subdividing a lot, there's no rules on the size of the lot to subdivide. You're specifically talking about subdividing in meeting conforming size to have a building on it, but you can subdivide a lot to any size you want.
Well, not, if you don't have the density, you can't.
That's not what that's not what this is saying.
Assume not.
So if I have a 2-acre lot, I could subdivide one piece of it into 2,000 square feet. What would stop me from doing that? I couldn't build on it, but I could still subdivide it.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah. You can build on it, that's the important part.
Why did you want
Is there, can you think of any,
Just hypothetical.
real world application, why that would be done?
Yeah.
Like for a septic or something, potentially? Solar?
There could be cases in town where someone has purchased an abutting lot to add to their property, but it's still a separate lot.
Yep.
Yeah, there's definitely cases like that.
So, and it's not whether it's happening now. The discussion that you're having is, that you're saying is, you can't subdivide. We're not talking about building or structures. Your language you just used, you can't subdivide unless it's a conforming lot.
Yes.
And I don't think that's relevant.
So
Wouldn't that fall on the DRB, whether it's conforming or not? Obviously, I could agree there, they could break off a piece, not build on it, obviously, but it would usurp what's already there, wouldn't it, by doing that? I mean, there's lot sizes that are already permitted in the village, in the town. They're already there. So essentially, no one would break off 2,000 feet because it's not conforming with the lot size current.
What this is trying to do, you have dimensional standards. This is basically trying to say that you can't create a lot that doesn't meet those standards.
Right. To build on.
I agree, I think it should stay that this lot size is for a reason.
Yeah, to build. I mean, I'm still trying to think of, even in the future use.
So when we say conforming,
Sorry, I'm gonna wait.
when we say conforming, we mean conforming to zoning regulations for building, is what I'm understanding.
Yes.
Right.
So I can certainly go out and buy a lot that's 500 square feet that doesn't conform to any zoning regulations to build on it, but I can still have that lot. And again, what I'm hearing is the language you're using is saying you can't subdivide to a non-conforming lot. Lots aren't conforming unless you build on them. That's when the conformity comes in place.
I understand that, and that's why I'm still trying to understand the original language of this. Because is that what that's trying to do? Do we even need that language? Is, I guess, the biggest question.
Martha, this language is necessary for what reason in your viewpoint?
It's basically the part of the regulations that say why the dimensional requirements of,
Well, those are important.
Sure, but you can still subdivide a parcel that's non-conforming and not build on it.
Yeah, but we're talking except as permitted for planned unit development. Okay, pursuant to section 7270. No lot shall be reduced in area size that, well, this is saying that you shouldn't reduce your lot like that. Want me to ask the DRB expert about it? Should we table this? Because it sounds like we don't.
I think we should table it. I need
Let's
more
table it. Yeah, we're
information.
spending a lot of time on it and we don't.
Yeah, and I don't
We aren't getting
understand the
anywhere with
purpose of
it. So that was for 520A, 522, right?
Agree.
I think it speaks a little bit to if we can't even.
If we don't know what it's for, then
Yeah.
why is it there?
Okay,
That's
we're gonna
fine.
table that, Martha, and get more info. I'll get more info on that.
Alrighty.
Alrighty, what's next?
so we can go back to the districts.
Yep. Look at lot sizes and coverage in all districts. especially the Preservation District.
Okay. So in the preservation district, you changed the lot area minimum to 8712. I think that should be, period. As required by Act 47. You were debating the 12% for lot coverage. So 12% of an 8,712 square foot lot gives you
Just over
a very tiny amount that can have a house or a building or a driveway or anything on it.
So we toyed around increasing it to 50%, right? From 12% to 50%?
Well, I would say now with our new definition of lot coverage, that includes sidewalks, paved parking,
It would have to be increased.
everything. I mean, I think we should be looking at more than 50%.
You've got
You'd have a
to get all those
teeny tiny
included.
house.
Yeah. I think we were waiting on this because Rose was gonna measure, right, the setback from the sidewalk? That's what we
Well,
were,
that was setback, not coverage.
Right.
okay. Well, it's where you can start your coverage.
And I think the lot coverage maximum with this new lot coverage definition, we have to look at that in I suggest we increase it in all districts to now cover the parking, sidewalks, any impermeable surface.
Do you have a suggestion for us on this, Martha? Or is it a personal choice?
I would agree that you want to be probably over 50%.
Over 50%?
I would push it to 75.
Your setbacks, that's gonna take part of your lot right
Yeah.
there.
Yep. I would say 75. We have a shortage of all infrastructure in this town. So to be restricted, 25% of open space, I think is,
Well, we do, but another thing to consider too is green space is important.
Especially in the Preservation District.
Yeah.
sure.
I would think maybe 60 would be a better number.
I like that number. Andy and Ted, what do you guys think? For lot coverage in the Preservation District, we're talking about the Preservation District.
60 works for me. 60, 65.
Because we were also talking about streetscapes being within the setback, the 8-foot setback,
And planting trees.
trees and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So if we're already kind of earmarking that space for the aesthetics, for the green space,
Well, it's not just aesthetics. I'm talking green space, the more impermeable surfaces you have, the more impact it has on climate
And flooding.
and flooding.
Yep.
And that's something to consider. I
Yeah.
mean, we've had 2 major floods in this town. Are we going to put in more impermeable surfaces and less to absorb the water?
it's a good point.
The paved paradise. Okay, I hear 60. Do I hear 70? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sticking with 60.
I'll stick with 60. What do you think, Andy? Stick with 60 so we can have a little bit more green
60
space?
or 60 or 65 works for me. So if everybody else is 60 or trailer up on that.
Same with me.
Same with you?
65 would
60,
be
65 for
fine,
you?
yeah.
Yep, I'd like 65.
62 and a half.
Let's go with 65.
Okay, 65 it is, Martha.
And is that for both residential and non-residential?
In the Preservation District?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gonna lose those beautiful fields.
No, maybe not.
The one in front of
Steve?
Steve, go.
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I always, and the reservation district is always vague to me, and just, not looking at percentage or anything, but how much of that was affected by the flooding?
Didn't get flooded in Irene. Did it get flooded this time?
I think just the lower part of it would be by the, community center and,
by the bridge.
Village Pizza. right
By the
there.
bridge.
Yeah, but it ends, the preservation ends,
Preservation, that's, the bridge is not.
the preservation
Yeah.
ends right before the high school, so it didn't get flooded then.
Yeah, I don't think the preservation district, technically didn't get flooded at all.
How about this end of it though, the other end of it?
That's what I'm saying.
That got flooded.
Yeah,
Cause that bridge,
coming this way.
the Black River,
Yeah.
Is that bridge in it? I thought it jogged up kind of towards High Street and then back down by the Veterans Memorial, then back out 103.
I think it ends at that
Is
bridge.
it right, it ends
Yeah.
at that bridge? I mean,
Well,
flooding's gonna occur.
Just
at
gonna
that
pull up
bridge
the map in
no
a minute, so we'll
matter
see.
what, so,
Okay, so we're going with 60. Martha, what's next?
65.
65, I mean, sorry, 65.
All right, I took a note, for some reason I'm not able to take notes right now on the document. So, 65% for both residential and non-residential in the preservation district.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what we're saying.
And you have a footnote down here that says it does not include accessory buildings, so I wanna get rid of that, it's okay. Cause it, by definition, now includes all
Yes.
structures and.
Yes.
apartment walls.
Yeah, you get rid of that.
Yep.
Okay, next district. Oh, wait, what, and the density, we already decided on 5th acre density on this district, right? Because that's what we have to for the state. We already made that decision, right?
I think you had discussed the other districts.
Right, we gotta discuss the other districts.
Yeah, you still have that at 5,000 square feet.
An eighth of an acre, which is not gonna work. None of the trustees are in favor of it, not one of them. They're not really in favor of 1/5 either, but I told them, it has to be because of the state, because of S100 or Act 41.
You wanna go with 8712?
We wanna go with 1/5 of an acre, right?
Okay.
Which is what we have to go with,
Yes.
because it's the only thing that's gonna go through. For every district, right?
Yes, if you got sewer and water, yes.
Yep. Because going smaller isn't gonna fly, right?
No, it's not gonna fly, they all said no.
Nope.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I can tell you their exact comments, but you were there.
So then for coverage in that district, you had changed that back to 75%. This is the
Village R?
village. This was, but you had not changed the non-residential. So,
Why did we do that?
I think the non-residential also needs to be changed.
Yeah, I don't think we had gotten to that column yet.
the 1/5 of a lot that applies to residential lots, so. You're okay with 10,000 for non-residential if you wanna leave it that way. 30% is pretty small though.
Yeah, I think that should be 75% as well.
Right.
Okay. So, residential is 1/5, non-res is 10,000, and coverage is 75% for both.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay?
On to RC, or R2.
Well, before you go,
something
In terms
else.
of multi-dwellings, so the 8712 would apply to single and 2-unit dwellings. For multi-unit dwellings, you could add back the 5,000 square feet per unit for 3 or more units.
No, I don't believe. We want to encourage housing, right? Multi-unit housing.
Well, it's already got 15, right? 15,000 square feet minimum.
This is all been crossed in.
Oh, it's all been crossed out. That's right, we did that with Jason.
The mentality to encourage more units.
You can't scroll up, she's in charge of it.
Never mind.
I'm sorry. So, do you want to add this back in, the part that's crossed out?
I do not.
Why would we want to add it back in? That's what I want to know.
Well, what are you gonna use for the lot size for a multi-unit dwelling? Are you gonna multiply 8712 by 3, or are you just gonna have 8712 as the minimum lot size for all residential uses? Which is fine.
It doesn't make sense, though. She's saying that, should we have a bigger lot for a 2-unit dwelling than a single-unit dwelling? I mean, a multi-unit dwelling than a single-unit dwelling? I think they should have a bigger lot for a multi-unit dwelling.
So the density and everything, if you could put a 3-unit dwelling on a 8,000 square foot lot, you want to say you
On a
can't do-
5th-acre lot?
You want to say you can't do that?
No, I think you want to do that.
Yeah, I guess you want to do that.
That's what we want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna leave it crossed out.
Okay, so then I'll just change that to lot area minimum for all residential uses.
Yes.
5,000 square feet.
8712.
8712. I gotta do my math.
Okay. This is your new village residential district. So what about this, same thing? As the original village residential district?
Oh, we were just in R2?
Yeah.
I thought we were in R.
You were in village residential, now you're in VR2.
Okay, now we're in R2.
Which is only Andover,
Right.
and
Why would
to
it be
treat
any
it, to treat it
different?
differently makes no sense.
Yeah, I think it should be the same as what we just said. Don't you? I mean, shouldn't they all be the same?
Yeah.
As well as the multi-unit.
Okay, so it'll be identical to the village residential.
Yes.
And also in terms of coverage.
Yes.
Begs the question, why it exists.
Why there's a minimum?
Because we put less businesses.
Why
Why
there's,
not a separate district, is that?
No, that was.
you better not do that after all the work we did on that.
Disregard that comment.
There are some uses.
Take it back, Brian, take it.
I take it back.
That was months and months. RC.
Okay, staying here. Has to be at least 8712.
And 75. Yeah, I agree.
Agree.
Why is all non-residential crossed out? Is it Because it's
'Cause it's all
residential,
one.
commercial, it's all one.
Yep.
Yep,
Yep, that's good, Mark.
I don't, that was before I started working in this project.
it's because it's for all residential and all commercial,
Right,
the district itself.
makes sense.
Okay, so 5th acre.
Makes sense to me.
Well, this is a commercial residential use, the RC.
Yes.
This looks really different from the original. We should put them side by side sometime and take a look. You would not believe how well you can tell because of what we're bringing to the trustees. So much stuff has been added to
So
this.
Martha, I just asked why the non-residential column had been crossed out. And it's because it's the RC district. So
Right.
I understand that. We want to mimic the
So there'll be one set of standards for both.
Nice.
So is this for commercial only? Or is this for residential?
This is
Residential,
RC,
commercial.
so it's residential commercial.
It's both.
I didn't get that. Could you try again? So I
It's,
actually have a question there.
yeah, go ahead.
If you could, yeah, just so everyone can hear you.
Yeah, people on Zoom can't hear you otherwise.
Okay, so my question is, I'm looking at the setback for the backyard. And it has it listed as 15 feet. So is that saying that there has to be a 15-foot clearance from the footing of the house to the end of the property line? Is that what the setback is saying?
The overhang,
Overhang, right?
overhang of the house to the lot.
Oh, the overhang, that's the
It's
overhang.
not the foundation,
Good to know.
But nothing, so it's from the overhang of the roof line.
yes.
So we are in a situation where we may need to rent our property, and we're living there right now, and we're residents. But our lot, the way that it was done was the entirety of the backyard, which is probably about 40 feet, all the way to a stone wall that ends at the next property line. It was not purchased by our previous owner back from that open space. We only have an 8-foot clearance from our overhang in our backyard, technically, that belongs to us. Does that mean under this new regulation, we would not qualify for residential rental under this new permitting?
No,
yeah.
you would be grandfathered.
You'd be
We're not gonna
grandfathered.
make you move your house.
No.
Well, I just wasn't sure with the new regulation and the
It's
setback.
it's not in blue, so it hasn't been changed. Right now, it's the regulation that exists now.
Okay,
Yeah, it hasn't been
Thank you.
changed. Yeah. The front yard setback was changed from 10 to
So,
5.
yeah, we did, do we increase it from?
No, it hasn't changed at all, I was just asking.
No, it's black, it hasn't changed.
We only have an 8-foot clearance because the.
Right.
Yeah, your grandfather.
I lived in a house like that, and it was really old. It was probably before they
So
had
you-
zoning regulations.
You would not be able to do anything from that point, that 8 feet closer to that property line. You could
Yeah.
have
They can't stick a back porch
setbacks
on.
around your house, everywhere else. If you met the setbacks, you could do something. You could add on. Well, I'm just saying, that's.
But we're sorry to lose you as a resident.
No, we're not sure, it depends on our school situation.
Hopefully,
We moved here for the school.
hopefully we won't.
Yeah,
What's your first name?
Becky.
Thank you.
My question, I guess, was we changed the front yard setback minimum from 10 to 5. And we didn't change the rear lot line setback.
Let's not change it.
Okay,
Let's keep some green space.
sure.
The only thing we wanna change here is the 8712 for the lot size.
Yeah, for fifth acre, because we have to.
Well, you can make it smaller, but.
No, it's not gonna fly. It's not gonna fly with the trustees, so it's just a waste of time. And effort.
And everything else, you're okay with
Yes.
Yeah,
the setbacks.
Yeah, this has been,
we've already been through all this.
this is so different from where it is now. You should look online where it is now. This has changed a lot, what we're proposing.
Like, well, that's all your districts.
Okay,
So, wanna look at the map?
let's do the map. When Martha and Alice and I met, they pointed out there's some weird stuff on the map that they were gonna do some research on. Like these little areas that we don't even understand in Andover Road, I think they were.
Tax maps?
Yeah, the zoning maps,
Okay.
yeah. And they were gonna consult with Malia about them, because she drew the maps about what they were about.
This is what we talked about last fall for the village residential two. It's gonna be a little tricky because I'm gonna have to flip back and forth to different maps. If you, I don't know if you can see my.
See your green
little
circle?
arrow. In the screen, there's a. Can you see where I'm pointing at this
Yes.
blue circle?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a little orange rectangle that was in the village commercial residential district. And when we drew the new lines, we stuck with parcel lines. So that little rectangle is, what do you wanna do with that? Do you want to, we were assuming it would go into the, village residential district, the light yellow.
Did we say that was Bridge Street?
That's Mill.
That's Mill Street?
Yes. So it's the old warehouse that's right on the river by the bridge they have. That's
Oh,
not.
okay, yeah,
But
old,
there's a residential house and there's also a group home on that property. Right on that orange spot.
right. That's, the old woolen mill, which is probably a brownfield.
Is it?
I thought it was Bridge Street when we talked about it.
Is that not Andover? Is that not Andover Street?
Andover Street, and we thought that was Bridge Street where Cavendish Streets, where Cavendish Partnership is that what that building is?
Yeah, because you have the railroad to the north.
Yeah, I think that's Bridge Street. We talked, no, that's okay. But it's commercial because it's, it was a woolen mill and then now it's a building company,
Well, that's,
contractor. Is that Bridge Street, Martha? We're talking about Bridge Street in Andover?
Alright, so.
I can't see the street name, so.
Yes.
I just wanted to know if you wanted that little orange triangle to in the village residential district.
That's probably,
It's what?
probably,
Oh, it's Plumley Avenue.
yeah.
Okay,
It's Bob's.
Sorry.
yeah, so it's a residential street, Plumley Avenue. There's no businesses on it.
It's Plumley Avenue.
It should probably change to R2 the way the rest of it is. To be consistent, not have spot zoning, it should be R2, because in front of it and behind it is R2.
What we were trying to do is follow parcel lines. So
Yeah,
we could put that little rectangle in village residential if we want to follow parcel lines, or since it was.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you could not follow parcel lines and include it with VR too.
yeah, let's follow parcel lines. Do you guys agree? Make it Village R as the rest of Plumley? What do you guys think?
If it's part of Plumley, I think it
Yeah,
should be whatever Plumley Avenue
We have to
is.
follow that parcel line,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that, to me, looks like it's just an overlay error when it was
yeah,
it
okay.
does.
Ryan is our zoning guy, I mean, he's our.
He's got a better map.
He's
She's got the same map, it's online.
Well, I can see it better on your phone, I guess.
We're agreeing to make it Village R, the way the rest of Plumley is, and follow parcel lines.
Now, up here,
So,
there's a blue circle.
Yeah, we gotta figure out what that is.
Circle.
If you wanna do the same there,
So that's Bridge Street.
That's first.
so there's a part of this, if you can see my arrow, there's a part of this lot that is going to be village commercial, and then the part of it that's village residential.
Yeah.
Just wanna make the whole thing village commercial.
That Bridge Street does have some commercial stuff on it.
So,
Cavendish Partnership, across the street, there was plumbing and heating stuff in there, I don't know if there's any more.
yep, so you're talking just the 5 point, a large parcel in the center. It's,
If you can see it's not that big, can you see my arrow?
Okay, so one part of that parcel is commercial and the other part's residential, that's what you're saying?
Okay, do you wanna make the whole thing commercial?
Is it somebody's backyard on Andover Street?
No, we don't, we're not gonna wanna make that commercial, cause that's the excess acreage for 5 La Cava Lane and lot 56.
We don't wanna make it commercial.
Leave it right.
Okay, so you wanna leave it half commercial and half VR?
What are you saying, Ryan?
No, I need to, this isn't is this possible to be done at a different venue? Cause there are specific parcels that you're not shown on your map. And it's a waste of air to try to describe it to you. So because there is actually 4 parcels that need to be adjusted for this.
Can we table that and have Ryan do some research for us?
I can draw. Yeah, I can draw you the map, and so we can make a decision on it next meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
That
it's
sounds
actually
great.
drawn out.
Okay, and so we're gonna table that and Ryan's gonna get us the parcels.
Yep.
We're gonna wait on that, Martha.
Okay,
Are we all done with our regional stuff?
I had parking, but you didn't have that on your agenda, so we can move it to next time.
Okay. And preservation district changes, I didn't notice that you had that on for the next municipal planning grant. You had moved that, and that's a huge ball of wax, so I don't know, maybe we could table that? What do you guys think? Because that is pages and pages long, I don't think we're gonna get to it. We're gonna table that, our preservation district changes, because it's a huge ball of wax and several pages to read. And you have it in your packet if you wanna
Right.
take it home and peruse. So we're gonna move on to short-term rentals. We just had a few things for our proposal for the village trustees that we're gonna talk about. Wait, I got that. Can you give me permission to share, Martha? Share my screen? Thanks.
Host, I think I may have to leave the meeting to make you a host, so let me try again.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Is there another way to do it?
Yeah, right click on Terry, and then you should be able to click in the menu, make host.
Yeah, she just showed me how to do it.
Are you on a Mac?
Are you on a Mac?
Well, she's,
Okay, you should be able to right click on your mouse, right, like on Terry's face.
It's not doing anything.
I'm frozen.
I'm clicking allow all participants to share screen, does that work, Terry?
What does it say? Allow other participants? Yeah.
I think you're frozen out. That's why it's not working.
Well, it keeps kicking me out. No, I'm able to share. Here we go, short-term rentals. Okay, we only had a few things we were going to, oh geez, Came out really tiny. What's up with that? Why did it come out so tiny? Oh, because it kicked me out of the Zoom.
So I guess that's why, so this is what we're gonna present to the village trustees.
Well, we have to decide about that if we're gonna include it in all our other stuff.
I have
Oh, go ahead.
a report on Knox boxes.
Oh, yeah.
I
Let's do
actually
that.
talked to a fire marshal about Knox boxes, and he explained that, and this is what I knew about Knox boxes, is they're usually intended for really large buildings, like a school or whatever. And the purpose of it is that, like if an alarm goes off in the school or somebody reports smoke, they can go in and search the building and see where it is. But on a residence, like a short-term rental, you don't need it, because if you went to the house, you would smell the smoke or see the flame or whatever, because
Yeah.
it's so much smaller, and it's a cost, and then there's the enforcement issue and all that, and basically, you don't need to require Knox boxes. It's
Okay,
just
so-
not necessary.
Chad and Andy, you good with that? No Knox box requirement?
We're all good.
Absolutely.
All good.
I did my homework.
You definitely did. Okay, so we got Andy, oh wait, no requirements. The first thing we had was deciding on how much to charge. We decided that there would be a yearly cost. The board would decide on a proposed cost later and then decide on a tiered per bedroom cost, an owner occupied lower rate, an annual fee. So that was something we were gonna decide on.
So those are all, in my opinion right now, options. And I don't know how deep we want to dive into this, because we were already speaking with the select board, doing a joint meeting.
Yeah, I heard about it.
I agree.
Joint meeting, so instead of us just kind of muddling through what we don't even, it could just be a big waste of time. So I mean, we have a good framework, we've been talking about it for a long time, but now's the time when we need to hear from the boards, one, if this is even, should we even be doing this? Or is this the select boards and trustees' responsibility to create this, what they want?
Right.
So I don't know how much time you want to spend on this tonight, but.
Well, we only have 3 things to decide on. I figured we could just finish it and then decide what to do with it later. We already got the knock box taken care of. We had just
Sure.
insurance and yearly cost, and that was all we had to decide on.
I kind of agree with Ryan on the yearly cost. I'd really like to get input or listen to other
Yeah, I don't-
people's thoughts. Else it's just us kind of saying, I think this is a good idea.
Well, we did look at, I do have that document that shows what everybody else
Yeah, that's true.
charges.
I hate to say this too.
Andy, what do you think?
And I actually think we should come up with a recommendation, and even if it's a range, because these conversations, we see how they go, we don't want to get specific. It's very difficult if we don't, I think we should have a recommendation so that it's sort of, I don't know, it gives a premise for the conversation, and then the conversation can start. And I think that the cost is actually a huge fear from homeowners who rent out their places. And I think if we can start to, bring that down to show that it's something reasonable and, compared to what people are renting, compared to other towns, et cetera, I think it makes an easier conversation. I'll stop there.
I have to leave, but I would just say what Andy said makes sense. You don't want it to be punitive, but you want it to be so there is some structure around it. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but I have to leave.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
That's my part.
Yeah. And thank you for your Knox box research.
See you later.
So I'm just saying, let's just finish it up, it's done, and then we can decide at a later date what we're gonna do with it. Because we got so far in it, we only have 2 things left.
One suggestion is that, what's over for someone who went out at $2 to $50 a night is not onerous for someone who rents a unit at $1,000 a night. So perhaps we can say 1 night rental rate for that property. Granted, it's not going to be the easiest to police, but we can see that's the whole purpose of Granico or somebody everybody else. You know, if we said it's one night rental, if then the property owner knows the cost of this.
One night, but there's a lot of, one night rental, what time during the year? You know, I think something before we even start talking about a fee is what we're gonna use the money for. So that then could determine the level of what the fee is. I mean, if we want the fee to only pay the bills to maintain this registry, that's fine. But if we want the fees to potentially, let's say, create a full-time position in the fire department, it's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
So.
Right. I mean, does anybody, let me ask you, does anybody just want to cover the cost of this? I mean, I think that, I don't, the town clearly needs money. We're operating in Chester, so we're not making money for Ludlow, making my business. You know, I think that we want to, it's not we want to be respectful of what it is, but we want to take this money, I think this is housing.
That's what our survey.
Housing, market, yeah, I mean, that's great, Terry, what did the survey say?
The survey said use it on housing. The survey said to improve affordable housing. That's what people said, they wanted more housing for, you know, for people that actually want to live here.
I agree with that 100%. It should go towards long-term affordable housing.
Yeah.
Realistically, how does that happen? So we get this money, we say it's earmarked for long-term rentals. What are the physical steps in reality? How does that happen?
We don't have to decide that today.
No, I know, but it's just a point I'm trying to make.
Right. I'm not saying we get into the housing business. The town's not going to want to do that at all.
Of course.
But maybe it's a way to give people, I don't know, discounts or renovations or, you know, that we can talk about that later.
So
we just know we need it.
Yeah, sure. And so again, I think, you know, we can have a framework, but I don't see us getting really anything legitimate down on paper without joint meetings with the select board and trustees.
Well, it's a place to start with them, that we have some ideas, we fleshed them out, here they are. What do you think, you know?
Yep.
So, and the other thing, well, we haven't decided on per bedroom, per unit, do we want to table this and I'll have that chart ready that shows what everybody else charges next time? We can decide that next time. But do we want to do the insurance thing? Ryan and Andy, you two guys were on different sides of the fence on that, and you were going to get more information about whether we should require insurance or not.
I don't see how legally the town could. That's my opinion. That's a question for a lawyer.
Hey, we got one here.
If you're putting everything out no longer practically.
Oh, okay.
Retired, but I stayed in the Holiday Inn Express last night. Was laugh. I don't, if we are responsible for helping with health and safety, I suspect that I don't know the law well enough, but I don't see a problem with requiring that someone has insurance, because what we're doing is actually creating, a third-party pot of money in case someone gets hurt and they need medical bills. I think we should absolutely require that.
I mean, if you take a look at that, I don't know if you guys seen that place on Route 100 that the flood went right through it, just past where the stoplight is at the bridge at Money Brook. That house that some short-term rental people were in it, and they got their cars completely buried under rocks and stones, and they just escaped with their lives. I mean, and they had no insurance to help them out. Anyway, are we gonna make a decision about insurance? It sounds like Ryan and you are still on opposite sides of the fence.
I don't see how we can without knowing the legality of it, and also, I think we can educate and we can say, this is why you should have insurance, and this is the type of insurance you should have, and these are what would happen if you don't have insurance. But I don't see how we can force homeowners
Plymouth does, and they make them have short-term rental insurance, a specific kind.
Yeah, but so I would disagree because I think that, Ryan, I think that, you know, when I listen to you and I usually agree, this isn't a home, we're talking about a business. And there's a great loophole.
Yeah.
And it's like up to us to help, regulate it, unfortunately. I don't wanna do heavy, but, you know, I don't know, doesn't Airbnb and VRBO, like, they make you sign that you have insurance in it? I mean, I think they did when we had done it. I could be wrong.
Airbnb, I don't believe they do, but they also insure the renter and the homeowner through the platform. You pay 3%.
Well, that to me is, it doesn't have to be, the concept is protecting the renter. And if it means that the platform they're using has, you know, reasonable insurance, then they don't need it, that's fine with me. But if they're not going through something, I think that, if we're gonna have a registry and we're getting involved in this in any way, I think it's one of the most important things we can institute.
Me too. And Ted, you're a non-voting member, but what do you think?
I'm on the same
With Ryan?
with Ryan, just
Yeah.
because I don't know.
Okay.
Because
I'm
I'm willing to
Okay,
listen
so-
to any part of anything and that's all fine.
you
I'm not
are
against it.
open.
I'm not for it. I would want to know more before I ever tried to make that decision, or someone's got to make that decision.
So Ryan, the information you acquired was that it might not be legal to require insurance?
I just don't see how we can. I don't see how we can, you know,
I see it as a box they check on their application.
sure.
Do you have
And so it's
homeowners
just-
insurance?
And which I mean, but it's just, I mean, that's an empty box. I'd rather educate, which I think we should do no matter what, but should everyone have insurance? Yes, I believe that. But does the town have the authority to say you have to have insurance, and by the way, you have to have this specific type of insurance with this specific carrier at this specific premium? Like, you know, you see the road I'm going down?
But that's never, look at that, what you just described, Ryan, is never the law. Nobody ever said this carrier. And I think that's kind of a red herring, with all due respect.
Oh yeah, you can't do that.
Well, didn't you just say Plymouth is requiring specific?
No, they're
type of coverage?
requiring your insurance covers short-term rentals. Doesn't mean it's Aetna or Metropolitan Life. They're just saying you have to have short-term rental insurance. I just read that in the paper.
I mean, every lease talks about, you know, well, real leases, if you're responsible, talks about having, you know, some minimal renter's insurance. The mortgage companies require it.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't think we're gonna decide on this tonight. What do you guys think?
Agreed.
Okay, so we got something done on here. We got the not box thing done, so we still have those two little issues to talk about. What else we have? Survey results. Do we want to do that tonight? It's way past our bedtime here. It's almost 8 o'clock. My computer's dying. Can we table survey results? Andy?
Yeah.
Okay, and next month, agenda planning. Looks like we have some stuff we tabled we can add on. And we have 2 sections to look at with Martha. And we gotta talk about our public hearing. We need to have a public hearing in November so that the trustees can have one in December or January. And if the trustees make their decision at the meeting in January, the town doesn't have to pay their share of the municipal grant money. So it's a big incentive to get it done by January, by the end of January. So that's where we're at.
So we
So
should,
I please have a request, that the Zoom link should be on the town and village calendar. It's useless, I mean, it's not useless, but, it should be very available, shouldn't have to fish through it. We have the meeting on the calendar. It should also obviously try to be on the agenda, but at the very least, I think that, you know, we want to get more people involved.
Right.
at the top of the agenda, it's the first thing written there, is the Zoom link.
Yeah, but it's not, she says, it's not in the agenda she got originally because I don't have a document version of it that I can cut and paste. I don't want to get any of the numbers wrong. So I just click on it on the town website.
Yeah, but it's also just,
Wait, I don't see it on the town website, I got the agenda off of the town website, it's not on this one.
Well, it's on there, but it's tricky. You gotta go to agendas and warnings and click on the middle of that link and not to the right of that link because it gives you prior agendas and warnings. Then that agenda will always have it on there. But I'll get it and make sure I have it on the next agenda that you get in the first place.
Can't we just put it on, but again, instead of people fishing around, we have a calendar, it's.
I can ask Diane about that. I'll ask Diane about that.
Obvious place to look, it says we're auditorium, it should say hybrid meeting and also the link.
Yeah, I'll ask her to do that.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so other business. Brian, circling back to 504. Document we're bringing back to the trustees. I didn't really have any comments on it.
so where this wasn't warned, can this potentially be warned for next meeting?
We want them to make a decision about it though, I would hope, at their meeting and in the beginning of October. We're gonna be on their agenda at the beginning of October and want them to make a decision about it.
So that's the public meetings now in October for what we just went over this evening?
Yeah, well, it's not public meeting anymore. We already had that. We had the hearing now, which is gonna be part of their agenda where they make the decision.
Okay.
We made the changes they suggested and we're just gonna bring it back to them in October.
Sure.
And I'm gonna have it listed, I'm gonna ask Bob to list it on there as separate items so they can be decided on separately, because remember at that meeting, they were saying they can't decide on it separately because it was A, B, C, D being part of one agenda item.
Well, I mean, talking about it, if we can't make any change to it at this meeting, so.
Okay, you don't mind. I'm sorry about that. Next time, just like, give me a heads up, I'll put it on there. Board member comments? Everybody wants to go home, I think. Citizen comments? Can we get you in the back first? He hasn't had a turn. No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Hi.
Hi.
I'll be quick, guys. Thank you for
You're
doing
Mr.
this.
Kelly, right?
Yeah, I'm Ed Kelly.
Kelly.
I'm too short for this too. That's disappointing, isn't it? Real quick, I do not have a dog in the fight with the short-term rental stuff. I don't own a short-term rental. I don't do it. I am a full-time resident here. We're very new.
Welcome.
Thank you. Love the way the town works these things out. So the select board decided to allocate $26,000 to a registry that was created by a consulting group. And I keep asking the question, where is it?
It was a data collection. It wasn't an actual registry. So it was earmarked to Granicus to collect all the rental information of the last winter season. And we do have that. We do have all that data. And now we just are deciding what to do with it.
So is it going to be public?
I believe Justin was saying at this point it's proprietary, I believe, to the town, but I would assume that should be public information, but I'm not sure.
But we have been told there's between like 800 and 1,000 in the town.
Well, that's the funny thing, right? There's numbers coming out at the select board meeting. It's 700, it's 800. So I'm just curious what it is, and I'd love to see it. Seems to be shifting quite a bit, right?
I haven't seen it, but
originally
I
what
was
it was
given
going to
the
be in
numbers.
4, and it's shifting. So that's really my only question. And I would just please warn you guys. I love the service. I so appreciate you being here. It's a Tuesday night. Everybody's tired. Please just watch for the government overreach. It's funny. We moved here and it was so pleasant to move here, right? Like 3 years ago, and everything was so easy and smooth, and we just laughed. We lived in upstate New York, and there's just layers and layers to everything in New York. And we lived in Connecticut, and that has layers and politicians and statutes and laws, and everything's defined with numbers and sizes. Please just be careful of that, because we could wind up in an empty town as people go somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed, for your comments. Eric?
Sorry, Eric Alden, Trailside Road. Most of my comments are gonna go back to the short-term rentals. I had my hand up, but you guys were busy.
Oh, sorry.
I get the want and need to try to push something through. A lot of this discussion we hear, and especially at this meeting, well, we can talk about that later. We can decide that later. We can make that decision later. We just want to push this through. This document as written here is going to get torn apart. You already had a flavor of that at the select board meeting. So my first question is the planning board presenting this, what you're calling short-term rental rules, as a bylaw or as an ordinance?
So again, something up to the select board and trustees. We're just trying to give them a framework to at least start a conversation. So that's why we're trying to work towards a joint meeting with all three boards.
I see it becoming part of zoning if they accept our proposals.
So that would be bylaw. Okay.
But our board would have to decide that. I mean, that's just my opinion.
The boards have requested of this board to bring a proposal forward. So either you would bring that proposal forward as a bylaw or as an ordinance. You'd have to decide. There's a big difference between the two. Someone mentioned punitive. A lot of this is punitive, and that's how it's been sort of governed from the beginning. Andy mentioned tonight, let's put a charge based on how much they charge per night. Maybe that's the basis for what the fee is. You don't do that with any other business in town. You don't charge a permit fee based on one establishment charging $30 for a beer and another one charging $10 for a beer. If you do, that screams of being punitive. You're looking at this as, we want to teach these people a lesson. How dare they make money? We're going to charge them for that based on how much they make. And you don't do that with any other business. In this section, you sort of talk about the registration and permitting for short-term rentals, but then you mention long-term rentals won't have a fee. I think the village trustees and the select board will have difficulty with that. You need to decide, is this specifically a short-term rental bylaw ordinance, or is it a rental ordinance? And it seems like the push is really towards a short-term rental, so that's what you should really dictate that as being, so you're clear.
I have a comment just to make on that, because Martha shared a document from the state with me that basically says you can't make regulations about long-term rentals because the state wants to encourage them. And she sent me an email about that you are not allowed to do that. Create the same thing for long-term rentals.
So there's a lot of pieces that could be torn apart, questionable. And one of them is the days, if it's owner occupied, they get a different rate. So if it's owner occupied, meaning that they're domiciled here, but they don't necessarily live here, they could be away for 5 months and rent their property as short-term rentals. Does that mean they're owner occupied? That would be a question. The other question would be, someone rents their unit for 31 days and then rents it for 31 days and then rents it for 31 days. Most would still consider that a short-term rental, but not based on what you got written here. And the other piece of it, obviously, is the fines. So if you're putting fines, I could be mistaken, but if you're putting fines in, then that would need to come under an ordinance, because you would need to be able to adjudicate that. So I disagree respectfully with Andy on the insurance regulations. I don't think you require that of any other business in town. So if you don't, and you're saying this isn't punitive, why would you require it for short-term rentals only? insurance does not protect the renter. It protects the homeowner. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
I'd like to respond to that since I was, mentioned several times. First of all, having a fee that goes along with, the rental, you're entitled to your opinion that that's punitive. That is far from how I see it. It's called reasonable and fairness. I hear you about what is applied to other things or not. We're operating in an area that is, the whole nation, the whole world is trying to figure out how to deal with. Second, insurance, actually, if you have money, I disagree also that it is solely for, the landlord. If the landlord has nothing, then the renter, if they get hurt, has nothing to go against, then it is the renter that is getting hurt. So I think that's one of the reasons that we are looking into all this is for, the health and safety of the renters. And I think that insurance absolutely goes towards that, for potentially, for, as I said, a pot of money that is needed for medical bills. But I appreciate your opinion.
Just one more comment. If you're looking at it in the health and safety, then you would require insurance for long-term renters also.
Okay, any other public comments? I would entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
I move to adjourn.
So I would just,
Second.
yay, we are officially adjourned. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we are officially adjourned. All those opposed? Thank you very much for staying the extra half hour plus minutes. Appreciate it. Got a lot done.